To speak, I came up here from Carlsbad, which is about 15 miles south of San Onofre, so we've been watching that plant very closely. Right now they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars that could have been used to put solar on tens of thousands of homes. Now the steam generators are busted. They've used a different kind of metal that is less conductive, and so they had to make the tubes thinner, and that's probably what's leading to the problems. They told the Nuclear Regulatory Commission this was a like-for-like replacement, and it wasn't. And somebody's going to have to pay for all of this, and we don't want it to be us. And we don't want to pay for the next replacement, and we don't want to even pay for the last one. We think it's time for San Onofre to be shut down completely, because even if you get it working, you're going to be piling up spent fuel over and over again. So we really want to encourage you to do an independent investigation, make a completely independent investigation of what's been going on in San Onofre. The ratepayers, we like to call them bill payers, have not been informed. Time and time again, we're told what's going on at San Onofre, but it's not really true. What's actually going on, for example, the steam generators are vibrating. The water and steam mixture is too much steam and not enough water, which is causing too much vibration in the tubes. But the old tubes weren't working either. That's why they had to replace them. So they're really in a can't go forward, can't go back position. It's a great time to turn to renewables and get rid of this behemoth on our coast. The value of the beach next to it, the San Onofre State Beach, if that were turned into properties, would be in the $30 billion. The value of the San Onofre property alone is billions and billions of dollars that could be used for something other than a nuclear waste generating station. That's what we call it, San Onofre Nuclear Waste Generating Station. So please do your job, because the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has not been doing their job, and shut that plant down. Thank you.
Commissioners, I'm hoping to see the OII on the nuclear issues voted out one of these days. I don't really know what's keeping it from happening. But anyway, some of the issues that I hope that you'll be looking at are the costs of the keeping it going right now. I also hope that it's not put onto ratepayers, and the costs of the shutdown should consider the fact that the nukes were bailed out. I mean, the stranded assets, we already paid for these nukes. There isn't any need to pay any more for them. We should be looking at the costs and the greenhouse gas emissions of 250,000 years of taking care of that plutonium that could kill us in a tiny amount. And that would be long after the decommissioning funds have been spent. So the replacement power, there is a lot of energy efficiency money in Edison's coffers right now. Last I checked, it was the end of April report that said that they had $530 million left, and they had about $600 million in January when the plant went down. I do not understand why that energy efficiency is not better deployed in the state. I know that there's been a huge problem with the utilities have been ignoring the energy efficiency measures that would lower the peak, in other words, better air conditioning and other insulation and stuff. That is something that really needs to be looked at. The cost of replacement power that we are currently, racking up for San Onofre is way higher than it needs to be, because there is so much of the energy efficiency money that's not been properly deployed to actually replace the fossil fuel resources or the nuclear resources. So I really hope that this commission makes the energy efficiency eligible for resource adequacy as soon as possible.
Why don't you talk about this whole power thing, the plant and that they shut down, and now what happened with that?
Well, it's the replacement power for San Onofre that is fascinating and affects the initiative drive that I tried to spearhead. The Legislative Analyst's Office claims that shutting down the Songs plant, San Onofre, would cause rolling blackouts because there's no replacement power for it. The first time I got them to do this analysis was within a few months after the Fukushima incident. And at that time, Huntington Beach had not been retired. Now, Huntington Beach can replace San Onofre power. That's why it was brought out of retirement recently. is because, well, how it happened is interesting enough, and I can't remember if I already covered that before you switched films
Well,
there.
I mean, why was they refusing to buy power from Huntington Beach?
Well, I'd have to go into that a little later after I set it up. But the important issue is Huntington Beach can replace San Onofre power without causing blackouts. And it was still not retired when the Legislative Analyst's Office did its first analysis for my initiative. But
And what was their analysis?
their analysis was how much it would cost the state if we closed the nuclear power plants because we passed the initiative. And they said it would cost billions of dollars annually, potentially tens of billions, because it would cause rolling blackouts, because there's no replacement power. Well, because songs went down in January of 2012, we found out there is replacement power for it. We can use the Huntington Beach gas-fired power plant and use it without causing any rolling blackouts.
So what was the decision based on that they made, that it would cost billions of dollars?
That there'd be no replacement power. They assumed Huntington Beach would be retired, and in fact, Huntington Beach was retired by the Public Utility Commission because CalISO assured them that Huntington Beach was not necessary for grid stability. Well, as we know now, it is necessary. If songs goes down, the backup power from Huntington Beach is necessary to maintain grid stability, to stop those rolling blackouts, and so the state doesn't lose any money, does not cost the state billions of dollars.
So what action should they have taken today?
Well, they should open the investigation, which
And
is
why didn't they do that today?
they just postponed it for a
Why?
couple of weeks. I don't know. They're going to, but they're
Isn't
still
this an
considering.
emergency situation?
Not the issue that they're covering is not something that requires immediate action. But I want to get back to the Huntington Beach power plant issue, which is what I discovered is CalISO telling them that that Huntington Beach was not necessary to maintain grid stability was disproven only because songs happened to go down in January. Now, they're still planning on retiring Huntington Beach in November, even though they took out the early retirement plan of doing it in December of 2011. They're still planning on retiring it in November of 2012. What I came to do today was say, no, you have to reconsider the whole issue. The basis for all retirement motions and that the Public Utility Commission made, actions that the Public Utility Commission made, was CalISO's assurance that Huntington Beach was not necessary to grid stability. Now that that's been disproven, you have to reconsider whether or not Huntington Beach should be allowed to retire. Now that you've taken it out of retirement, you can't assume your past actions of allowing retirement are automatic. You have to revisit the whole issue. And that's what I'm hoping that they will consider when they bring this back in a couple of weeks.
Should San Onofre continue to be shut down?
Oh, it should never have operated in the first place, and it certainly should be shut down permanently now. For the same reason Diablo Canyon should be. They're both dangerous, and they're both unnecessary. We have plenty of power without them, and only this amazing coincidence of songs going down in January proved that definitely. We don't need the power, and it's not worth the risk.
Okay, and what can people do if they want to find out more information about what your issues? Do you have a website?
Yes, CaliforniaNuclearInitiative.com. It keeps up to date. We have filed a court action earlier this year that was denied by the Supreme Court. They denied us a hearing. That does not preclude us from going to the Superior Court, and I'm considering that depending on what I find out about the Huntington Beach plant. Because we're going to court on this based on the Legislative Analyst's Office analysis, assuming that it will cost the state billions.
Well, what does the Legislative Analyst's Office say now, that this has been proven to be factually incorrect?
They are sticking to their guns. They continue to say, as recently as a month or so ago, that it will cost the state billions of dollars. Now what they're saying is, yeah, well, this year we got lucky, we were able to bring Huntington Beach out of retirement, but in 2013 that will not be the case, so we'll have rolling blackouts. They still say they're rolling blackouts.
Who do they represent?
Well, in my opinion, basically themselves and the nuclear industry. But by law, they're supposed to be representing the citizens of California. I don't think they're doing a very good job of that, because they should have looked into this further. I was encouraging them to look into this further. I was giving them the information they needed to look into this further. And so far, what happened with songs going down has proven me right on every angle, and them wrong on every angle, but they still refuse to admit it. And, you know, to some degree, I think it's because of the information they're getting from public agencies, which can be viewed as supporting their position. I just think they have to see through the fact, as you said at the public hearing, that many of these public agencies are chaired by people who are nuclear insiders, who have a past in the nuclear industry and who are giving them prejudiced information. If you look through that smokescreen, you'll find that California does not need nuclear power, and it will not only will it not cost us anything, it'll stimulate our economy by providing us with new sources of power and new jobs to put those sources in.
The Songs is a 2,200 megawatt nuclear power plant that went into operation in 1983 and 1984, the two units, units 2 and 3. It's owned by Edison, 78%, 20% by SDG&E, and a little less than 2% by the city of Riverside, California, which is a municipal utility. These new steam generators were installed in the year 2010 in Unit 2 and 2011 Unit 3. We know about Unit 3 was shut down in an orderly fashion after a steam leak in January this year. Unit 2 was down at that time for a scheduled outage and has remained down while the Unit 3 failure is being investigated. The real work at this stage is to establish what caused the problem and make sure the units can operate safely, and that is, of course, the federal government's responsibility by law, and that resides in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is established an augmented inspection team to do that. Only the NRC can determine when these units, if ever, are safely returned to operation again. This commission, I think, has been very conscious of San Onofre and the issues surrounding it from the very beginning. Obviously, our responsibilities are multiple, are many, including ensuring the lights stay on both this summer and others, and perhaps in the years to come, if this unit never operates again. We've been working with the other state energy agencies, with the CEC and the ISO, and with the utilities and the governor's office on this. It was made, one of the public speakers talked about Huntington Beach. Those units were brought back online from retirement to give voltage support. That was an effort by this commission, the California Air Resources Board, the ISO, and the CEC led to that. But unfortunately, the speaker did not reflect this, but the air permits for that unit will be moving to Vernon, to a new power plant in Vernon next year. However, there are other things that can be done in Huntington Beach to sustain operation there without any air emissions. We have accelerated demand response programs, and of course the Sunrise transmission line is now in operation. The governor spoke at its dedication last week, along with former Governor Schwarzenegger and Commissioner Simon. I want to thank Commissioner Simon for singling me out for some nice words, along with Joe Kennedy and others at that event. I got a very nice report about it. I was on vacation at that time, having scheduled vacation 6 months ago, otherwise I would have been at Sunrise, at that opening, believe me. And going on, we're working with the utilities and others on analyzing all the options for 2013, not just this summer, but we've got a program in place for this summer, in the event that SONGS units remain offline next year. Over the next 90 days, we anticipate doing the following things. We're committed to doing the following things, and I talked to others about this, and it's in line. We're going to create and engage an interagency working group to consider the longer-term impacts of the SONGS outage. And that will include the ISO, California Energy Commission, California Air Resources Board, and the State Water Board. And the purpose of the other one is because of the implications on one-screw cooling of what happens with San Onofre and so forth. Secondly, on November 1, 3 months away, Edison is required to file a notice pursuant to section 455.5 of the Public Utilities Code. This is the state law that sets up a procedure if a power plant is out of operation for 9 months. And it requires this commission to institute an investigation within 45 days of that act, and making rates subject to refund to protect ratepayers. Using the procedure set out in this law, I'm going to recommend and do recommend that my colleagues, that number one, we have the task force of these various agencies helping us, and by November 1, that we issue an order investigating an OII, an order instituting investigation when Edison files its 455.5 notice. Consider all the costs and reliability issues presented by the Song's outage. So I think we're going about this in a very thorough, thoughtful, and complete way in an omnibus fashion rather than in a scattered fashion as some would advocate. So those who are deeply concerned about us looking into this matter across the board in many respects, be assured we're going to do that, but we have to do it in a fashion that does not jeopardize in any way the ultimate ratepayer potential benefits, because we're very conscious of the costs here. I don't know, Commissioner Florio and I have talked about this on several occasions. I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
That we, rather than holding the item, that we withdraw it and expand and rewrite it before we reissue it. I think we're targeting the first meeting in November to reissue that and incorporate 455.5, which isn't mentioned in the current draft. But I think it's important for people.
I would agree with that. I think first place is that what we have drafted was incomplete and has to be rewritten, and it should be done in the context of 455.5, and I certainly share your concerns about that. And so procedurally, it would be withdrawn for a couple of months.
And I think further, the fact that we haven't opened a formal investigation does not mean we're not investigating. I mean, we are not the NRC, and we don't have the technical ability to watch everything that's going on at the plant from an operational standpoint, but we certainly are keeping track of the reliability implications and the cost implications, and we will have a proceeding in due course to address that. I think at the moment, I certainly wouldn't have thought when this was put together a couple months ago that we'd still be where we are with complete uncertainty about what's ever going to happen with this plant. So we will be proceeding with the investigation, just not today.
Anyone else have any comments on this?
So I would also note that we have worked, as Commissioner Peevey mentioned, President Peevey mentioned, with regard to Huntington Beach, Sunrise, but also with regard to the demand response order. That we also increase the budget for demand response to try to encourage people to save energy. We've worked very closely with ISO, the California Energy Commission, the utilities, and CBOs to encourage people to save energy. There are predictions that it's going to be heating up in Southern California in the next couple of weeks, so the time is coming when this is going to be really important. So we have taken a variety of steps, and I believe that the steps that President Peevey and Commissioner Florio outlined